Jon Snow's watch is over, but we're just getting started here on the Game of Thrones live post-show recap. And now, here are the two guys who are always having great conversations in semi-elegant rooms. I'm Rob Cesternino. Here is the great Josh Wigler. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing well. I am feeling a little ambitious tonight, Rob. I hear there's an opening for Lord Commander on the Night's Watch.
Is it? Oh, you're going to throw your hat in the ring?
I'm not trying to say that I'm going to toss my tinfoil hat into the ring, but I might be saying that that is exactly what I am doing. I am advocating for the spot as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Under Lord Commander Wigler's watch, we will be getting Pizza Fridays. It's going to be really good. Can't guarantee speedy delivery. The delivery times in the north are pretty serious, but I will do my best to get that pizza to you guys on time.
All right, well, very excited to be talking about Game of Thrones once again here live on post-show recaps. We have our chat room going. We're going to be taking your questions live in the as well, hashtag PS Recaps, and then also on our YouTube channel, postshowrecaps.com/YouTube. Hell of a night, hell of a season, Josh.
It's happening. It's all happening. Jon Snow is alive. A bunch of people are dead. We should really not bury the lead here. Rob, you must be squealing with joy, Tower of Joy over in your neck of the woods, because we lost your least favorite character on the show by far, and it's not close.
Okay. I don't normally do this. We're broadcasting, we're talking to a wide audience here, but I just want to speak directly to one listener in particular, Melisandre. Okay. Melisandre, I know you have a lot on your plate right now. I know that you're confused about your powers, what you can do, what you can't do. You stay away from Ollie, okay?
Stay away from him.
Stay away from him. He's dead. Leave him dead. Let this one go.
Maybe bring Alistair Thorne back. You know, I feel like a resurrected Alistair Thorne could be pretty sweet. But yeah, Ollie can stay. Ollie can stay exactly.
Do not touch Ollie.
Yeah, leave Ollie alone. Leave Ollie alone.
Oh, he had such a douche face all the way to the end.
Yeah, he kind of had shades of the Joffrey, right? Like, you know, you remember Joffrey's dead purple face from back in season 4, episode 2, when he chokes to death. And I got a little bit of a flashback to that with Ollie's dead face. I don't want to rejoice in the death of a child. This was really messed up.
He killed a man.
He did kill a man. That man didn't stay dead. But you got to imagine that for Jon, like on some level, this felt real good.
No, you know, even I was like, he can't kill Ollie. But then I saw that look. That face.
Yeah,
that
he was
face.
like, oh, you know what, I can.
For a kid, he has a highly punchable face, Ollie.
Oh, man. Wow, really kicking this dead man while I guess he's not quite down yet. They have to cut him down first.
Even the faceless men were like, you know what, that one, we're not going to take that one.
We won't take that one. We won't take that one. That one's in use. Wow, really brutal. Brutal eulogy for Ollie here tonight.
Sorry. Yeah. Alistair Thorne, even I said, okay, maybe he wasn't such a bad guy. But Ollie all the way to the bitter end. But so much to talk about. Of course, this is the first of our Game of Thrones podcasts for the week. Josh and I do a feedback show coming up later on during the week where we answer your questions that you got to marinate over for a couple of days. We'll get to that on Wednesday. And then also we will get to the Game of Thrones book club. Got anything interesting from the books to talk about?
Yeah, for sure we do. Well, there was some question as to whether or not the book club was going to exist still this week. We talked about that on the book club this past week, that if a certain thing does not happen in episode 3 of Game of Thrones season 6, then the book club is canceled. We will break our oath to give you more book clubs. And that thing, Rob, I have to say, it did not happen on the show. So should we be on death alert for the Game of Thrones book club?
No.
Maybe.
No. And if it is, get Melisandre in there.
But if it dies, we'll bring it back to life. So yeah. So you'll either get like the totally alive Game of Thrones book club this week or a resurrected version of it. Either way, you'll get a Game of Thrones book club this week.
All right. Good to hear.
Spoiler alert.
Make sure you don't miss any of those things when you subscribe to the Game of Thrones podcast here on Post Show Recaps. Go to postshowrecaps.com/GOT, iTunes, or search your favorite podcatcher for Post Show Recaps. All right. Josh, let's get into everything. So Jon Snow, we wondered coming into the week, what was going to be the oath that was going to get broken?
Yeah.
We talked about this. Is Jon Snow going to leave the Night's Watch? I'm like, he's not going to come back from the dead and then quit his job. Where's he going to go? He totally pulls the Jerry Maguire move, minus the who's coming with me.
Yeah. Who's coming with me besides Flipper here? Who's Flipper in this situation?
I'm not sure exactly.
I guess
He's like,
Ghost
Snow
is kind
out.
of his flipper. Yeah. Yeah,
Dropped the mic, left.
he dropped the mic, he dropped the Alistair, he dropped the Ollie, he dropped the Bowen Marsh. He dropped a lot of people.
Where
Maybe
does
that
he go?
fourth guy's name was Mike.
Where is he going, Josh?
Yeah, who knows? He's done with the watch, though. We had speculated about this throughout the week. Is Jon Snow going to leave the watch? Technically, his watch has ended. He died. You are only part of the Night's Watch until death. It says nothing about resurrection. So he is, I think, if we got Maester Mazzaro on the line here, I think that he would tell us that legally this is kosher. That Jon is able to leave the watch without repercussion. But it's an interesting move for him because you're right. Where is he going? This is a guy who has had eyeballs on the White Walker situation. He was at Hardhome. He knows better than just about anybody how real this situation is with the White Walkers storming toward Westeros. And the wall is the last line of defense between man and the undead, between the living and the dead. And Jon's just going to leave? You got to imagine that he still has something up his sleeve in terms of fighting these White Walkers. But that being said, the Jon Snow that has returned from the dead does not seem to be a super confident Jon Snow. This seems to be a Jon Snow who has been through some stuff and is really licking his wounds right now. What did you think of Jon's attitude when Jon woke up? He seems to be really down on himself right now.
Is it the whole thing about being dead and there was nothing? Is that it? Is that kind of a downer?
I gotta imagine that's a bit of a bummer. It really is. It's like, you think that maybe there's something
Imagine there's no heaven.
Yeah, there's no heaven. Imagine all the people. There's no one there.
Yeah.
And you get killed, you get stabbed, and then it's total darkness, and then you're back. And that is probably a bit of a shock. I don't know how devout Jon was. He prayed to the old gods and all of that stuff. I don't know if he was super religious in that regard, but he at least believed in it to some extent. And for him to cross over to the great beyond, and it turns out that there's nothing so great about the great beyond, that's got to be a little disconcerting.
Yeah, I feel like that there's been some talk of what happens to you after you die in different parts of the world, and certainly with the Dothraki, I feel like we've talked about that. But where do you go when you die according to the Seven? Has that been discussed?
I don't know. I'm not a religious man myself, Rob, so I don't dabble too much in
the High Sparrow on here.
Yeah, we should get him as a special correspondent, maybe for the feedback show.
Maybe we could do that.
Maybe we could tap into him.
But what is Jon Snow doing? Is he going to join the Wildlings? Is he just completely leaving the North?
Who knows what he's going to do? I mean, I think that we saw pretty clearly what his feelings toward the Watch are right now. The first order of business when he comes back to life, other than Davos, please give me something to cover myself up. This is really embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, frickin' Tormund Giantsbane later has to make a big deal out of it. That was a real lame move.
Do you know how cold it is at the wall, Tormund?
Cold at the wall? He's dead? Things are going to start happening? Like, be cool. Be cool about this, Tormund. Not everyone's a giant,
Yeah.
It's different standards.
Having sex with a bear.
Yeah, that's not really Jon Snow's thing. But yeah, I think that we see pretty clearly that, one of the first things Jon says to Davos is...
liked it. Right.
Yeah, okay, all right, easy.
Sorry, but he's defensive.
Yeah, but he says, I did the right thing. I did what I thought was right. I brought the wildlings through the wall, and I got murdered for it. So I think that we're talking about crises of faith that's been happening on this show this season so far, really accented with Melisandre's crisis of faith. I think that we're now seeing that with Jon Snow, where coming back to life, it's not like he is now here with all this renewed confidence that everything he was doing is right. I'm clearly very special. I'm not supposed to be here, yet here I am. That's pretty sweet. Instead, it's more, I can't believe I got killed in the first place. I can't believe that my actions led to me getting killed. What kind of place do I have here among people who think that I'm a traitor and are, thinking that so harshly that they are willing to stab me to death? I just don't want to be here anymore. So I don't know. I think we're in for a little emo Jon Snow right now. I'm not so sure that that's the Jon Snow I want to see.
Boy.
But I think that we've got a little bit of emo Snow going on.
Kylo Jon,
I think, is a thing.
Yeah. I mean, does he head down to Winterfell? I mean, I think that that's not going to be too good. I mean, we have Ramsay coming to the north, seemingly,
right,
to go fight off the wildlings. You have to feel like at some point Jon Snow is going to get dragged back into that. But, without Sam there, we saw back in the first season, I believe, when Jon Snow tries to leave the wall, that his friends, get him to come
they drag
back.
him back, yeah.
doesn't have that many friends left.
I don't know. I mean, he had like a really great bro hug in with Dolores Ed. You know, it was really just like, come on in, Ed. Let's hug it out.
Coming back for Ed.
I really liked that Jon Snow came back from the dead as a hugger. Like, he really like became more like, touchy-feely.
Well, he's changed.
Comfortable with his emotions. I liked that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But where is he going? I don't know. I mean, I think that's a question. It depends on when he's leaving the wall. You got to imagine he's going to pack up his things. There's got to be a scene of like Ed being like, "No, don't go," and he's like packing up his dorm room. And if it takes him a while to pack and leave the thing, maybe he is leaving Castle Black as Sansa Stark is rolling up on it. Or maybe he leaves Castle Black and runs into Sansa and Brienne somewhere out there, either in the Gift or somewhere else in the north. I think that's not impossible. That Jon Snow, we've been talking about, like, is Jon's story going to link up with Sansa? We were called naive for thinking that might be a possibility during the feedback show, but I think with Jon leaving and Sansa heading in that direction, pretty easy to see how those two would cross paths. So my money right now is on some sort of meeting between those two characters, and certainly some sort of meeting between Jon and Ramsay feels a little bit inevitable at this point, because Ramsay really does seem to have his eye on that situation with Jon Snow and his wildling army.
Josh, were you frustrated that there wasn't more between Melisandre and Jon Snow tonight in terms of she's like, oh, Stannis wasn't the prince that was promised. You would think that you would have that. You saw Davos even say, could we get a minute in here? Like, okay.
I loved that.
Can I get some time also? Can I get some FaceTime with the prince that was promised?
Yeah, we need some boy talk right now. I was a little frustrated. You know, this is a show, Game of Thrones serves many masters, or maesters, if you will. You know, Game of Thrones is a show that has a lot going on. Many, many characters, many different stories, so many balls that are up in the air, impossible to juggle. Not even Dan Foley could pull it off. It's a really difficult juggling act, and I think that, you know, you always want to check in on the stories and see where things are, and every episode has to advance as many stories as they possibly can. That being said, I think with the severity of Jon Snow's resurrection and how wildly different that is from just about anything we've seen on the show. We've seen a couple of resurrections in the past, nothing even close to this major, nothing even close to this level of like a pop culture event, the return of Jon Snow following the death of Jon Snow, which, you know, was over our heads like this really grim cloud over the past 9 months. I feel like a little more time spent on the Jon Snow storyline at the expense of cutting, I don't know, 1 or 2 stories from this episode. Did we need Samwell Tarly on a boat tonight? And you know I love me some Sam. Not to say anything bad about Sam, but did we need that storyline when we could have spent a little more time with Jon, talking to Melisandre, talking to somebody else? So I was feeling like, with the big event of Jon returning from the dead last week, I would have liked to have spent more time on that character, exploring what it means to be alive again all of a sudden. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you too much. I mean, we have gone back there. It seems like all 3 of these episodes this season, they've all started at the wall and then come back and ended at the wall, had the last scene there, all 3 of those episodes. So, I mean, we are getting 2 scenes there where all these other places we're pretty much just seeing 1, 5 minutes, 6 minutes with each character around the horn. But it does seem like, you want to start to service that story a bit more, and I'm sure we will get those answers as we go along. But a little frustrating that now that he's back, but now you figured he was gonna jump up as he did and know exactly what needs to be done, and now he's back, but it's like, I don't know what to do. And a crisis of conscience of what am I doing with myself?
Right. And I think that just a little more elaboration would have been great. You know, just a little bit more time spent with this guy who has been on ice for the past 2 episodes, has been present but has been dead for the past 2 episodes, has not been saying a whole heap and lot of anything. I think it would have been nice to spend a little more time with Jon. What we did get from him was really interesting. It's hard to tell exactly where he's going from here right now.
All right, well, let's jump into the Bran story, because I think people are very excited to hear you get into. And so once again, we got to see Bran. He is quantum leaping through Westeros history, and we got to see this fight against Sir Arthur Dayne.
Yeah, Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, who is, one of the legendary warriors in Westeros. He is considered from that era to be one of the best swordsmen, somebody who is highly regarded. I think even though Ned Stark is going to fight him, you get the sense that there is mutual respect there. Arthur Dayne is a really cool character. This whole sequence, this is called the Tower of Joy. And not to dive too far into what it means, only what was shown on the show. It is a moment that a lot of people who've read the books have really obsessed over. In the time since these books have started coming out, it's prominently featured in the Ned chapters in A Game of Thrones. He thinks back to this memory quite often, and there was every reason in the world to believe that this scene would never make it onto the show. It was almost harder to think of why would the Tower of Joy be on the show, and the fact that it was on the show and we got to see it through Bran Stark's eyes, it was really exciting. It was really cool. It was not the full Monty. It was not the full enchilada of what a lot of people, I think, were hoping and expecting to see from this storyline tonight. We'll talk more about that in book club, but it was still a really cool sequence, I thought, to see. And it's awesome. Isn't it awesome to see Ned Stark back on the show? It's not Sean Bean, but it's still cool to have that character back in the mix and have him be kind of prominent through these first 3 episodes back.
What'd you think of young Ned Stark?
I liked him. You know, he's not Sean Bean. He's no Sean Bean. Hard to reach those heights. But I thought that he was a good actor, and I thought that he did a serviceable job there. And it was just cool to see him in an action scene, and just cool to see that Ned Stark, even though he is long dead, and I think that it's really easy to say that Ned Stark's purpose on Game of Thrones was pretty purely just to set up the stakes of anybody can die at any point. Here's the guy who you think is your protagonist. Whoops, off with his head. Now you have no idea what direction the show is heading in. I think a lot of people probably just think on a surface level that that is the purpose of the Ned Stark character. The fact that we are now seeing him again in Season 6 and sort of seeing his legacy play out a little bit, I think speaks to the fact that that character is a little more important than maybe people give him credit for. You can't blame anybody for not really thinking about Ned Stark too often in 2016, but he seems to be a bigger deal than we thought going into the season, which is cool.
Young Ned Stark, I thought he looked a little bit like if Sean Bean and Neil Patrick Harris had a kid.
Yeah. If it was Neil Patrick Harris cosplaying as Eddard Stark for
Right. So I've had a long-standing theory of SB plus NPH
equals
YNS, Young Ned Stark.
Oh, I like that. Hold
Yeah.
on. This is complicated math. That's SB
Yes.
plus
NPH.
Yeah,
that's the short name.
YNS. Interesting.
That's just the short name for what I call that.
All right. Well, I'm not very good at math, so I'm going to have to take some time to process that.
What was the significance to you so we didn't get to see what was going on up in the tower,
right,
but what was the significance to you of why Game of Thrones showed us this scene in particular, other than, it was a really cool fight?
Right. Well, I think that, what's interesting is the Three-Eyed Raven he's really curating these visions for Bran. He is showing things to Bran with a very specific agenda in mind. He wants to show Bran things that matter in Westeros history. We know that eventually he is going to be showing Bran, quote-unquote, everything. Everything seems to be a pretty tall order, but I think it depends on how you drill down into the meaning of everything. And is it everything that matters? Like, is that the rest of the sentence? I'm going to show you everything that counts. I'm going to show you everything that's super important. So you got to imagine that the scene that we saw last week with Bran going back to Winterfell, and the scene this week of Bran seeing his father in the middle of battle with Bran with Ned showing up with his posse and going up to Arthur Dayne saying, "Where's my sister?" All of this has to have some greater import for what the Three-Eyed Raven wants Bran to do later on down the line. So I think Game of Thrones is showing this to us because slowly, piece by piece, we are starting to get the picture of something that's going to be very, very big for the Bran story, maybe for Game of Thrones as a whole. I would say that nothing is without purpose in the Bran flashbacks.
Boy, I really hope it's not going to be everything, including the stuff that's not important.
I mean, if it's like bonus features on the DVD, that's fine.
Yeah. So basically, it's going to be like in Spaceballs when they're like, okay, what part of the show are we watching now?
Yeah.
We're looking. This is now. This is what's happening right now in this episode.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned Spaceballs because I do feel like Game of Thrones kind of took a turn for the sci-fi tonight, right? You have this moment where Bran is traveling back in time and he's witnessing this whole big battle, and there's the big reveal that Ned Stark doesn't kill Arthur Dayne the way that Bran had heard in the stories. Ned hears screaming from the tower. He goes to search for it. He is walking up those stairs. Bran shouts after him. He says, "Dad, Dad." And Ned Stark freaking stops and turns around toward the noise of Bran, and he doesn't see anything. Bran is not there when he's looking, but he heard something. He heard Bran Stark. Are we in the time travel season of Game of Thrones officially? Like, is this, like, are we in, like, Lost territory here? Are we in sci-fi Game of Thrones right now? That
Well,
kind of
tell
melted
me,
my mind a little bit.
what's the worldview here? Is whatever happened, or
Right.
can Bran change the past?
Well,
Because
that's a big question.
really, if Bran can sort of prevent his own birth, then he'll never get pushed out of the window by Jaime Lannister, and this whole chain of events never really ends up happening the same way.
Feels like you don't want to prevent your own birth. Like, feels like you wanna be born. Like, that would be great. That would be good, so that you're around at some point in life. But I mean, the Three-Eyed Raven says to Bran that the past is already written, the ink is already dry, which is like the very poetic Game of Thrones version of whatever happened. But do we believe that? Do we believe that the Three-Eyed Raven is telling us the truth, or is he telling Bran that so that he's kind of trying to pacify Bran and basically say, yeah, that thing that you think you can do, you can't do that. Like, it's not in your skill set. It's not a possibility. But what if it is? And what if the Raven is just trying to caution Bran into not doing something super crazy because that's really going to F with the timeline, and suddenly we're going to be in all sorts of, like, alternate dimension craziness Game of Thrones land? I don't know. It really messed with me. That was a big surprise to me, that Bran was able to kind of interact with the past in that way.
Yeah, that was very interesting to see what's going to go on. I actually hope that that's not the case, because I feel like that potentially we could see some interesting stuff shown to us in the next couple of weeks, and Bran will just be screaming through the whole thing like, Dad, Dad, shut up, we want to hear what he's going to say.
Yeah, it's like, shut up,
We have to hear this, this is important. Shh.
Yeah, don't talk during the movie. It's really cool stuff. You talk to do the best part.
Okay, but then Bran is supposed to leave. Do you have any sense from seeing all this stuff where he would be headed to?
No, I don't. I mean, the Raven,
took him like a season to get there.
I know.
Show's gonna be over by the time he gets back.
Really did take him a while. No, the Raven says, you're not going to be an old man in a tree like me. You're not going to be this. And we heard in the previous episode when the Child of the Forest says to Mira, Bran's not going to need you here, but he's going to need you out there. So Bran is not being groomed to live in this weirwood tree complex for the rest of his life. He is going to get out there eventually. Where he's going to go, what he's going to do with that knowledge, TBD. And whether or not he's going to go out there, kind of his own volition, or is he going to be forced out there? Like, is something going to happen that is going to cause him to be on the run again? Well, I mean, I guess Hodor would technically be doing the running, but Bran would be with him. That's a possibility as well. So I think really the sky is the limit with that character. And based on what we saw tonight, I thought that was really fascinating stuff. Really amped up on the Bran story.
Okay, so let's head back to Winterfell and talk about what's going on there. And we got to see Ramsay. He's holding court, and he's talking with one of the Umbers.
Yeah, the Umbers. Do you remember the Great John? Do you remember the Great John Umber from Season 1? He was like the big guy that was challenging Robb, and then like he fed his fingers to a dog, and then he was like, oh, your dog loves tough meat. It's pretty good stuff. And so like he was suddenly all in on the King of the North. So apparently, I guess that guy is not alive anymore, and the Umbers are now they were formerly Super Team Stark, and now they are Team Bolton all the way.
All right, so they bring a gift for Ramsay, and we see not only the return of Asha the Wildling, but also we've been wondering where he was forever. It's a reckoning.
Yeah.
Rickon Stark is back. Who had that in their pool?
Yeah, that's interesting. Who had that in their Jane pool? Yeah, Rickon is back. He is back in the mix here. There was a whole Tumblr that was devoted to whereisrickon.tumblr.com, I think is what it was, and just lots of really funny GIFs of, inserting pictures of Rickon in everyday situations. I guess we know the answer now, and unfortunately the answer is no laughing matter. Certainly no laughing matter, Rob, for poor Shaggy Dog. Poor went out. We lost another direwolf, and it was terrible.
People were upset.
It's not great. It's not good. It's not great.
Yeah. All right. So here we are. It's almost like we took, one step forward, and Sansa escaped from Ramsay's clutches. Now take 2 steps back, and now we have Rickon now in the clutches of Ramsay with Asha.
This is awful. This is really, really bad. This is terrible news for poor Rickon. I mean, think about, what's the best case scenario for this character? He has to be freed next episode. Otherwise, he is losing fingers. He is losing toes.
The Reekening.
The Reekening is really going to happen. You know, we're talking about the Rickoning, but it really will be a Reekening, I think. I mean, any time that Ramsay has been in power over anybody, when has he ever shown restraint? It's not in his toolbox. He does not have that. He just destroys people. He ravaged Theon Greyjoy. He was not kind to Sansa Stark. What's going to stop him from being really awful to Rickon, especially when he doesn't seem to want any Starks alive anymore, so what's his incentive to keep Rickon Stark alive? I feel like, Rob, I know you were really optimistic about the Stark siblings making it out of this thing okay, but Rickon's in a real bad spot right now.
Yeah, he really doesn't have a story also, so you could lose him. I feel like he's probably the most expendable of the Starks.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's no question about that. Absolutely.
Right,
like, you could lose Rickon and you'd be like, who's that?
But maybe that's the word that we need to hear for Jon Snow to go back and either pick up the wildlings or get back into the cause when he's sort of like he hears from he passes through Umber camp and it's like, oh yeah, did you hear that Rickon Stark got sent to Winterfell and he's in the clutches of Ramsay Bolton? Like what? And then Jon Snow ultimately rejoins the cause to sort of save his youngest brother.
Yeah, I could see that. I could absolutely see that. And I mean, we do know from Melisandre. Melisandre said, like, I saw Jon Snow in the fires. He was at Winterfell in a great battle. And I think now that we've seen Melisandre bring Jon Snow back to life, I think we need to start, like, reevaluating some of the things that she has said and done as probably a little more accurate than we had given credit in the past. You got to imagine that Jon Snow winds up at Winterfell at some point on this show. And that seems to me to be a pretty good reason to get him there. If he finds out that Rickon is there and I got to do something to save him, blah, 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 that could be the best news possible for Rickon Stark. Still feel like Jon won't get there before Rickon loses like a nose or an ear or something like that. It's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad.
All right. Well, at least one Stark got one of their senses back. That Arya had like a training montage, and at the end of it, the girl is no one, and the girl can see.
Yeah, wasn't it really super satisfying to watch Arya tool on Arya 2 at certain points? Like, It was just great to see Arya 2 so frustrated. Really hate that character.
Yeah.
Really down on Arya 2. Emphasis on 2.
Yeah, she's not good. I mean, really, it's almost like how could Arya 1 actually sustain that beating? I mean, I don't know how she wouldn't be dead, that she took so many staff hits to the face.
What are the odds that next week's episode includes Arya Stark getting hit with a staff once again? Because we're 3 for 3 right now of just scenes of Arya Stark just getting beaten with a whooping stick.
Yeah, she really did take a beating, and luckily, hopefully the worst is over now. Has she graduated the House of Black and White?
Did she graduate, or did she just get her eyes back? I couldn't tell if it was like that was pure graduation day, but she seems to be considered as a true bona fide no one right now. And typically, that's not what you want to hear. Like, you don't want to have somebody say, like, you are just like a straight up nobody. But in the context of the House of Black and White, this is great news. So, yeah this is good stuff for Arya this week.
Okay, so Arya's list, we talked about this in the preseason in the Road to Westeros leading up to it. Sounds like Arya's list is really a very truncated Arya list.
Edited for screen time, perhaps. Just like the runtime of the episode was just a little limited. But she has 3 names on there right now. Cersei Lannister, Gregor Clegane, and Walder Frey. That's it. That's everybody. That feels like a manageable list.
It's like I wish my to-do list was that short.
I mean, one of those items on the list is the mountain, and he's a zombie, so that's going to be a tough hill to climb, literally. But the other 2, I feel like you can handle that, Arya. You got that. You've got Cersei and Walder Frey on lock. That's going to be easy pickings for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you imagine Arya Stark versus the mountain?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a fight.
Yeah, it's little shades of the Red Viper rematch.
Yeah, except hopefully Arya's head doesn't explode.
Yeah, I don't.
She already got blinded. She doesn't need to get like blinded with thumbs in the eyes.
All right. So speaking of things that happened at King's Landing, is there anything else about Arya you want to touch on?
No, I mean, I think it was, it was a training montage, and Arya has her sight back. It's great. I mean, we were wondering if Arya was going to be blind for a long time. A lot of these season 5 cliffhangers seem to be resolving rather quickly.
Boom,
Jon
boom,
Snow,
boom, boom.
Jon Snow is dead. Now he's not dead. Arya was blind. Now she's not blind. I feel like this is better. I want Arya to be able to see again, and I want to see what they do with her next. No
If it
idea.
wasn't for Rickon, I'd say this is really everything looking up for the Starks at this point.
Yeah, but that's a real blemish on the record. That's a real bad situation we've got going on there. Really not great.
Let's talk about this business going on at the King's Landing. So we got to see a lot of the little birds from Varys, which I really was very excited to see on the show.
No Mark the Chicken, unfortunately. I thought that he would have been one of the little birds, but maybe one of those children's name was Mark.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. Qyburn is the Master of Whisperers now, or at least was under the Cersei Lannister regime. I don't know if he still holds the title. Probably not, considering that, Maester Pycelle is really selling that guy down the river during the small council meeting. But either way, Qyburn has kind of stepped into that role, and he has kind of become Cersei's closest advisor, ear to the ground, really paying attention to what's going on. And so to see him inherit Varys's birds, that's interesting, especially because I think I don't think it's a stretch to say that Qyburn is a much more sinister individual than Varys ever was. And Varys was a guy who kept a magician locked up in his locked box for however many years. And that was pretty sinister. But Maester Qyburn is a worse dude. And so what's he going to do with like this small army of little kids? That's going to be pretty effed up potentially.
Yep, getting a lot of secrets. I love Qyburn. Qyburn is I'm a big Qyburn guy.
You're in on Qyburn. Yeah, you're feeling the Qyburn?
Yes, feeling the Qyburn. That's very funny.
Yeah.
And so we got to see Cersei and Jaime basically crashing the small council meeting. And look at this small council that we have. Kevin Lannister is running it with Qyburn, the Queen of Thorns, and which Tyrell is that?
That's Mace Tyrell.
Mace Tyrell. Okay, yeah. He's back.
Yeah, he's back from Bravos, I guess.
Okay.
Is anyone asking, like, what happened to Meryn Trant? It's like, we don't want to talk about what happened to Meryn Trant.
Meryn Trant.
Classic Meryn Trant. Meryn Trant disappeared. We don't know.
All right, so everybody's back, and Cersei and Jaime just like pull up a chair and say, "Hey, we want to be in on this."
I loved that. I thought it was great where, they're like, "You can't force us to leave," and Kevin's like, "You're right, but we can go. See you later. We're gonna small council it up in a smaller room."
Now, how about Pycelle, who really just put his foot in his mouth completely in this episode, was talking trash about Sir Robert Strong right when Sir Robert Strong walked in.
Yeah, it was a great moment where like he's just like going on and on and on, and like everyone in the room is like, "Oh no, don't keep saying that, Maester Pycelle," and you just have this moment where Maester Pycelle more or less should have just been like, "He's right behind me, isn't he?" Yeah, he's right there, isn't he?
He's right there.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked that. I thought this whole scene was really great, and just the ending of it, leaving Cersei and Jaime and Robert Strong just hanging out in there, was so awkward. It was just really good comedy, I thought.
Yeah, I also got to see. I watched this show with the closed captioning on, Josh. And there's that moment when Pycelle is talking, and then the Mountain walks in, and I got to see in closed captioning in parentheses, Pycelle farts.
What?
Yeah.
What? What do you mean Pycelle farts?
Yeah, that's what it says. I'll try to pause it and get the screenshot of my closed captioning later.
Why is he farting?
That's what happens.
Is that the oath that he's breaking? Is that what they call
the oath of wind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wait, so are you saying that Maester Pycelle was a total Maester farty?
Yeah, at that point he was.
Yeah, interesting.
At that point it was. Interesting. Then we got to see a real sit down between King Tommen and the High Sparrow talking about what's going on, and I'd love to get your take on this. Did the High Sparrow really set the king straight? Is Tommen really seeing things the High Sparrow's way?
Man, Tommen is like the most malleable human being on the planet. Like, he could really tell Tommen anything, and if you say it in a convincing enough way, he's like going to be completely on board. until somebody tells him in an equally compelling way the exact opposite of the thing. And then he will be on board with that. He really he flip-flops like a flapjack, this guy. It really
2 times.
Yeah, 3. Yeah, he really does. Like, I feel like he was, he goes in there feeling that Lannister bravado, ready to roar at the High Sparrow, and the High Sparrow, who is admittedly really great with words, is a solid manipulator, certainly manipulated Cersei in Season 5, and has gotten himself into this great position of power. He really just sits down Tom and is like, listen, your mom is just using you, and like she's definitely a sinner, and you know that. And Tom's like, you raised an interesting point.
Think of it that way.
I hadn't thought about it like that. I think that Tommen is, I think right now he's sipping the High Sparrow Kool-Aid for at least the time being. I think that one of the things that we are going to probably be seeing with Tommen this season is this tension between loyalty to his mom and loyalty to his wife, and he might think that through the High Sparrow and being diplomatic with him or listening to him and hearing him out or maybe even actually believing in the High Sparrow's teachings is going to be the best way to get Marjorie back. My read on the scene was that he was at least really compelled by what the High Sparrow was putting down if he wasn't quite fully picking it up.
All right. Hate that High Sparrow.
I know you do. You're not
The
feeling
worst.
the burn there. Yeah.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever, talk to one of these High Sparrow followers? They're always talking about how great the High Sparrow is. No, it's brutal.
Yeah.
All right. Then let's go to talk about what's going on in Meereen. And they really are giving Peter Dinklage and Tyrion a lot of rope to work with in these scenes in Meereen this season.
A whole lot of nothing happened in Meereen this week. But that being said, really fun to see Peter Dinklage bust out the I Never game again.
It's great. It's great. It's just like if we didn't have so much other stuff to get to.
And there's a lot. There's a lot to go through. So I don't know that we, and once again, when that's what we're spending screen time on, when Jon Snow has just come back from the dead, I do think that I'd like to spend a little more time on that than to see Tyrion go through this whole scene of just, kind of chewing on scenery. But that being said, it exists, and so to evaluate it as it exists, it was a really fun scene. It was a great season 1 callback to him and Bronn and Shay playing I Never. I thought that was really funny. And I love that the game didn't get off the ground, though it's really fun to imagine how that game plays out with Grey Worm and Melisandre. I feel like it's a very tame game.
Yeah. All right. So the other big scene that we got to see in Meereen proper was Varys talking to one of the prostitutes that was working with the Sons of the Harpy.
Yeah.
That I believe that was the same prostitute that actually had one of the Unsullied tell me a story.
Yeah.
And then that guy ended up getting killed. And Varys has this long conversation with her, and interesting scene. Although, Josh, to you, was the payoff really that big of a reveal in terms of, the Sons of the Harpy are being funded by the masters in Yunkai and Astapor?
Right, and Pentos as well, right? Didn't they say Pentos?
What was it? Volantis, I thought.
Oh, Volantis, sure. Yeah, so I think that I think it's a big reveal in its own right. Maybe a little anticlimactic. Maybe you're thinking like, oh, is it going to be someone we know is the one person who's pulling the strings? I think this is a little truer to Game of Thrones. To see a bunch of politicians and like the people who are higher ups in these 3 different cities coming together for common ground against Daenerys Targaryen. That feels a little more Game of Thrones to me, and I think that, that doesn't play out super dramatically necessarily in the reveal, but I think the ramifications are potentially enormous, because now the thing that Dany and everyone who we like in Meereen is facing is not just this internal threat with the Sons of the Harpy, but all of Slaver's Bay, which we had thought that Dany had conquered, seems to have found its footing again. And can we take care of that? And oh my, taking care of that, if that delays a trip to Westeros, wowie wow. I think that there's going to be some angry people about that. But I think that the ramifications are potentially big, because you hear Melisandre say, like, we're going to have to respond to these people in the only language they know, and the implication is, like, that language is violence, extreme violence.
It's like, you just thought we had to fix Meereen? We have to fix all of Essos.
Yeah, we've got to reform the whole continent.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we'll go to Westeros in like
then
20
we
seasons.
could double back on to Yunkai.
Yeah, I know. I know. You must have been happy to hear the word Yunkai.
Always.
Always.
But yeah, it's like, oh, the Masters are behind this. Yeah. Well, duh.
Duh, of course.
Maybe look. Let's talk about Dany and her at the senior citizen home.
All right, talk about it. What do you want to talk about there?
Yeah, not much other than it's like the Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
Yeah, you can never leave. I mean, well, maybe you can't even check in, apparently. I mean, that's what the leader of that group is saying is like, you'll be really lucky if you get to enroll here. Like, if we like you, we are going to allow you to stay with us. And if we don't like you, then that's not going to be great news for you. So, I mean, I think that the implication there is like Dany basically has to pass this test. Like she has to pass the board of approvals here.
She has to pledge.
Yeah, she has to pledge Dosh Colleen. I don't know what like the symbols are for that sorority house, but she has to pledge there. And if she doesn't make it, she's toast. Daenerys Targaryen is not dying this way, but I am curious to know how long you think this storyline is going to play out before Dany just like runs shit and is just like completely in charge of this place.
It's got to be over next week.
Has to be?
I guess it doesn't have to be, but come on.
Ought to be?
Come on.
Ought to be.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, let's figure that one out.
Get out of here.
Yeah, let's get out of here, please. Yeah. No, I think that this storyline can't imagine this goes on forever. And I think that the show has been moving at a pretty brisk clip with a lot of these different storylines this season. We saw, again, as we mentioned, with Arya, with Jon, with those cliffhangers getting resolved. I feel like it can't be like the entire season that Dany is going to be away from Tyrion and those guys. I think that could be resolved pretty soon.
Yeah. To me, it was like a little bit of like an Orange is the New Black vibe of like, okay, here you go, Dany. Right. You're the new inmate here in the women's penitentiary.
She's the Piper. Yeah. Piper Targaryen.
Like, wait, hold on. I'm not supposed to be here. Like, oh, you're here now.
I know.
You better get with the program.
Yeah, so is the person who's in charge, is she like V?
Yes.
Okay, I assume that you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
You've been caught.
Not following it regularly, right.
You've been caught. Orange is the new Blackwater.
Yeah. All right, and then also Sam and Gilly took a boat ride.
Sure they did.
Yeah, they did.
Poor Sam. Yeah, first sighting of Sam all season and Gilly all season, and it was just for him to like barf into a barf bag. And man, Sam had been looking so cool up until that point. It's like this is what we come back to with Sam. It's him just puking on a boat. It's not great.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
Gilly headed to Old Town.
Yeah, but like
not to Sam's house.
Right, going to Sam's house, going to be living with Sam's parents. That's not going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's not a cool guy move.
Yeah, just like offloading your girlfriend onto your parents. It does seem to be, you want to at least talk that through first.
Yeah.
And Gilly just kind of seems to be like, well, what choice do I have? I kind of got to do it. I got to trust you on this, Sam. What do you think about Gilly saying that Sam is Little Sam's father? Obviously not biological, but she's considering him to be Little Sam's daddy-o.
Okay.
That's great.
Mazel tov. We were there already, but right? Sure.
Mazel.
This is good. All right. Josh, we have so many questions from the listeners, the people watching us live. You want to jump into a bunch of them?
Of course I do.
Okay. All right. Let's go a little bit all over the place. This is from a whole teaspoon of powder in a bottle thing with Arya. Was she mixing some sort of antidote for her blindness?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's what she ends up drinking at the end, and she seems to be cured of her blindness at that point, right? So it seemed to be some sort of power shake that gives you really great visibility. Really good for the eyes.
Branched chain amino acids?
Dude, if the option is like drink this powder drink and you have awesome eyesight, or get LASIK, I think I'm going to drink the shake.
Yeah. Okay, this is a question from TV is Our Real Mom wants to know. Lord Umber's a double agent, right? He was pretty careful not to kneel or swear an oath. Is there hope for Shaggy Dog? Josh, you've seen that.
Well, there's no hope. I don't think that there's much hope for Shaggy Dog. Shaggy Dog looked pretty dead. Unless you're saying that that's not Shaggy Dog, and it's a different dog.
Thing where it's like, hey, this is the Stark dog. I found it.
Right. I mean, I don't think. I mean, that's interesting. Like, that would be kind of poetic in its own right. That that's what the world thought happened to Rickon,
Rickon.
and Rickon kind of comes back in using that same tactic. That would be pretty cool. I did wonder. Like, is this such a clear-cut situation where the Umbers have betrayed the Starks when they were really tight with the Starks way back when? This would be the only thing that is possible good news for Rickon, and I don't think it's off the table. I think we got to see how the story develops in the weeks ahead, but I think that I think that we can have a little bit of hope that the Umbers are pulling one over on the Boltons and are still Stark loyalists at heart. The North remembers and all that good stuff. Maybe they are Team Stark ultimately.
Not for anything. If you were gonna be duping Ramsay, wouldn't you also go through like, oh, okay, sure, let me honor and let me bow to Ramsay as I'm gonna get one over on him?
Well, not everyone is a Bolton who, really doesn't value their words at all, and a lot of the people in the North really get by on their word and on their oath and believing that they are honorable and have integrity and are sticking to the honor, loyal, integrity. Really having those be their core tenets in the way that they move about life. So for the Umber guy, like, maybe for him to do that, to go that far, to bend the knee and pledge loyalty to Ramsay Bolton is a bridge too far for him, and he wants to maintain some level of dignity. I think, yeah, just go all the way. Just do the whole thing. But I could understand a Northerner not agreeing with that philosophy.
Ryan Cordes adds, so that was a fake direwolf head, right? It looked much smaller than Grey Wind's head.
All right, well, gotta roll back the tape and see. I think that there's something interesting there. I think that there's an interesting possibility there that I had been chewing on a little bit, but nice to know that that's in the ether, that some other people are thinking.
Okay, Katie D wants to say, Tyrion just wants a good game of beer pong or truth or dare. Too bad he's hanging out with the most boring couple ever.
Yeah, they are really straight edge.
Is that the least desirable double date in Westeros?
Well, it's a weird one to be the third wheel on, I think. It's to be a fly on the wall of that relationship. I don't know. I could think of other twosomes that I'd be more interested in.
Who's the ideal? Who's the ideal double date couple? Jaime and Cersei?
I mean, that's going to get interesting. You're going to see some stuff that you didn't think you'd ever see. It's going to get real weird real fast.
All right. This is a question from Dustin, who wants to know: is the passing of Jon's coat part of some Lord Commander election ceremony? So does it matter? Is that like a whoever has the coat, or was it just like, hey, I don't need this anymore?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I mean, I don't think that, whoever wears the coat is immediately the guy. I think, and Jon says it, too, to Ed, when Ed's like, what the hell do I do with this? And Jon says, wear it, burn it, I don't care. My watch is over. And I think it's less about Jon is anointing Ed as the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I think it's more just a sign of Jon being like, Dunzo, I'm finished. Jon Snow is out. Emo Snow is in. And I think that he is really just he's not passing the torch. He's walking away, and it's now a Night's Watch gig to figure out who's going to be the new Lord Commander. And I don't take this to mean that Ed is automatically Lord Commander. Although that would be great. Lord Commander Ed would be pretty fun.
Okay. William Northrop wants to know, how many episodes until we see inside the tower, Josh?
Oh, until we see inside the tower? Hopefully not super long. And I do hope that we go in there. I think that we will. I think that what's going on in there is pretty good. So I think we're going to want to see that.
Okay, Sarah Blackfire wants to know, do you think that Arya has really become no one? I remain skeptical. We still have Chekhov's needle out there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I also remain skeptical about that. I think that Arya, you could really see Arya just like going through the motions. You've said that before. Like, is she just going through the motions of being with the Faceless Men just because she wants to use their skills to attain vengeance later on? I think that that's still a possibility. I think that right now it seems like she's in. Like, right now it seems like she's really on board with what the Faceless Men are teaching. But I could very easily see that flipping at any point. Just like the next Maren Trant cruises through Bravos and Arya is once again like, yeah, I'm just going to go kill that guy. So I think we're really just waiting for some shoe to drop that's going to cause Arya to confront her old self again. And I don't think it'll be that long before she snaps back into that mode.
Okay. Our Philly wants to know, what are the implications of the three-eyed raven literally waiting 1,000 years for Bran? How powerful will he be when he leaves?
How powerful will the Raven be, or will Bran be?
I think Bran.
I think you gotta imagine Bran's gonna be pretty powerful. If this is really what the Raven has been here for, waiting for Bran Stark to show up so that he can impart all of his wisdom and all of his awesome ninja skills, like his crazy time travel ninja skills to Bran, that Bran's gonna be pretty good. And I think that the other thing too is like the Raven looked really freaked out when Bran was able to shout at Ned and Ned was able to hear him. I think the Raven was like, not great. He's not ready for this. So I think that really, more than anything of like the Raven like sticking around waiting for Bran, I think that moment really speaks to the potential power levels of Bran Stark, and that's some big stuff. That's some real game-changing stuff if they really decide to follow down that rabbit hole.
Jonathan Gonzalez wants to say, do you think that Jon's leaving Castle Black because he's upset over Tormund's off-color comment about his manhood?
Yeah, he's probably not pumped about that.
Yeah.
My pecker's fine. Leave it alone.
He was upset. He was very upset about that.
Unbelievable.
Let's see. How many more questions you got, Josh?
We could do anywhere up to 3 more, and then I got to tap out of here.
Okay, up to 3 more. Let's see. A lot of our commenters are on board with this. Umber is faking and trying to trick Ramsay theory.
I like that. That's great. I mean, any theory that doesn't end with Ramsay cutting off Rickon's nose and ears and eyebrows is good in my book, especially if it comes at the expense of Ramsay's pride. That being said, I feel like this Umber plan, if he is double crossing Ramsay, he's brought Rickon here, like. You could see Ramsay sniffing that out. Like I feel like Ramsay's good at sniffing out the ruse, and maybe this thing backfires.
Yes, he sniffed out the ruse last week.
Yeah, he really did. He snuffed the ruse.
Yeah. All right. Ethan says, do you think that meeting with the Klarvezen, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, will be an opportunity for Daenerys to finally amass her army?
Well, I mean, I think that's been one of the things she's been doing, throughout her entire time on the show is like she keeps recruiting people. More and more people are coming to her cause. Like every season, every passing season, there are new people added to the entourage. I could absolutely see her bringing a bunch of these people to her side. Like it's so easy to see like that epic monologue that Emilia Clarke delivers 2 episodes from now, where she's like, "I'm in charge here. This is my sorority now, and first rule is no one has to stay in this house. In fact, you can come with me and conquer a lot of really big houses across the world. Who wants to go?" And I think a lot of them are going to be really into that.
Okay. Geek Furious says, now that Jon's watch is ended, does that mean he will leave right before Sansa gets to him? Also, there's no way in any realm that Rickon won't be used as a pawn to draw Jon and Sansa into a fight with Ramsay.
Right.
I feel another Stark death is coming because the only Stark that is allowed to live without a direwolf is Sansa. It is known.
Oh, is that true? That's the rule? Listen, I think that another Stark could die for sure. I don't think that that's off the table. I've said before, like I could see Arya not making it through this whole show. And right now, given where Rickon is, like I'm very worried for that character, especially because he's expendable. He hasn't been on the show in forever, and even when he was on the show, what was he doing? Will Jon not see Sansa when he leaves the wall? Like the mechanics of that. It's challenging to imagine that they're just like going to pass through the same area and not run into each other. I feel like that's going to be weird to justify on the show. If he's going south from Castle Black and she's heading toward Castle Black, you got to think that they're going to encounter each other. I think that Jon and Sansa are going to meet up.
Okay. S. Labua says, I'm glad Melisandre and Grey Worm don't have a podcast based on their conversation skills.
Yeah. What would it be called? Pod Troll?
Oh,
yeah, he's just like giving updates on his patrols. I patrolled today.
Oh boy, yeah. If you gave us 60 seconds, I'm sure we could come up with something good.
Yeah, you're a Grey Worm.
Yeah, you're Grey Worm. It's good.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, what is the hashtag tonight?
Ooh, I don't know. Do you have any good suggestions off the top of your head?
Feel the Qyburn.
Feel the Qyburn. That's good. I like that. I also have SB plus NPH equals YNF.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can get plus signs in the hashtag.
Any ambition, yeah. Hashtag 100%.
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah, just wait for what happens with this Tower of Joy. It's going to be legend, Wait for it. There,
Derry. Yeah.
All right. Very exciting stuff, Josh. And I can't believe it. 3 episodes in. Only 7 to go.
Only 7 to go. It is flying. It really is. Fun stuff. Really happy with the
7.
season. It's definitely been entertaining so far. So looking forward to all the podcasting this week. Looking forward to feedback show. Looking forward to book club. We want to get those questions from people. How do they do it?
Okay, here's what you do. You can either email us, got@postshowrecaps.com, or you can send them in to our voicemail line at postshowrecaps.com/voicemail. We got so many questions last week. I was blown away.
Great feedback show last week. How long did we go? We went like an hour, 15 minutes.
About
that was
15,
really fun.
yeah,
It was great.
like
A really good show. So those are always fun, and especially the more voicemails we have to play with, the better. So send those voicemails in. Really want to hear those. We're going to do book club this week. We'll probably record that on Wednesday morning. So get those questions in at postshowrecaps.com/feedback or got@postshowrecaps.com by Tuesday night, I would say. Same thing for the feedback show.
Yeah, and the biggest thing you could do to help out the show, if you are subscribing to the show, or if you just want to hook us up with some Stark ratings, you can go to our iTunes page. Go to postshowrecaps.com/GOT iTunes. That's our page in the iTunes store. Comments, Stark ratings, we always appreciate that, and it helps more and more people find the show. Josh, I'm sure you've got a million things in the hopper for the Hollywood Reporter. Anything you can give us a preview of?
I am going to have a couple of interviews this week, potentially with some of these.
Ollie?
No. Well, maybe I should track that down. That's a good suggestion. Maybe I'll look into that. I'll see what I can do about that. But maybe talking to one of the Starks coming up pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, can't believe that.
So keep an eye out for that. Follow Josh on Twitter if you want to get everything that he's doing. He's at Round Howard. Of course, I'm at Rob Cesternino. Looking forward to getting back with you guys live next Sunday night as well. Shout out to Alex Kidwell behind the scenes, helping us round up these questions.
I love Alex Kidwell. King of the world, that guy.
Yeah, he's our little bird behind the scenes.
Yeah, collecting those tweets.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.